Hi everyone, and a massive welcome to a very exciting and insightful new series here on InfoSec Live of Selling Cyber, where the awesome Greg van der Gaast is going to help us explore how vendors can impress additional value from their offerings in a way that can drive real change to the security landscape by fundamentally changing how their tools and services are positioned and indeed used. We'll discuss leveraging tools to drive ongoing risk reduction, losing my voice here, rather than firefighting, and understanding how different approaches, processes, and technologies fit together as part of a program rather than as individual items, and how vendors and CISOs can make security a business proposition sellable to the wider audience beyond IT and security. And for those of you in the chat, yes, we're going to talk about Lambos too. My name's Simon Linstead. I'm the founder of the InfoSec Live community. And before we get started, sharing stories and best practice over the last few months has led to 40,000 views and 8,000 hours of our content being watched on YouTube by you, our amazing subscribers. So a huge thank you for your engagement. And if you'd like to take it a step further and support the wider InfoSec Live community, or indeed buy me a cheeky decaf coffee to put in this mug that my wife lovingly got me for Valentine's Day, we do have a few different options. First up, the ability to purchase super stickers in the YouTube chat if you'd like your question bumped up to the top, and 3 tiers of membership allowing you to show your support in any way that you can. But whether you join or not, being here and engaging with our content is what really matters. So if you're watching this live, please do like and subscribe. We want to make these events as interactive as possible. So make sure you do drop those questions in the chat. After all, it's you, our audience, who make these events so special. So Greg, thanks for being patient and listening to me rambling on. Let's bring you on. Here he is.
I'm here.
And you're in the Lambo showroom.
And you can hear me this time.
I can. Amazing. I have got a little picture for you too, but I didn't want to put it up to start with. Will it work?
There it is. Nice. There was somebody mentioned a Urus, and like a Urus drove by here literally like 3 minutes ago while you were doing the intro.
Nice.
I live in Cheshire, so it's literally like
footballers' wives. Yeah.
Yeah, they're more in the Bentegas and the rollers, to be honest.
So it's all right for some, isn't it? Well, look, Greg, thanks ever so much for coming on. We've got a massive turnout, so a quick thank you to everyone I can see in the chat there. Lee Gilbanks saying Volvo over Lambo. This is what happens when you get older, Lee, I'm afraid. Jay Tilson asking where his mug is. Jay, your mug is downstairs, but I thought the irony of this one, which says it's too late to swap you now, could relate to some of the questions that we're going to get posed today about vendors and their tools, Greg. So I thought I'd use that one.
Yeah. Your summary was really, really good about all the stuff that we thought about talking of.
You mean all the stuff that you thought about talking about?
Did I write that up? That's why it's so good.
Yeah. Well, look, let's crack into it. So I suppose frame it a little bit. We were out for dinner in Manchester a few weeks ago, all moaning about the way vendors approach sales. Well, we're not perhaps all moaning about that, but having discussions about how vendors approach the market, why they're not winning. And we thought it would be an excellent idea to learn from your experience and find out what these guys and girls can do differently to actually get their products in the right place and actually used properly.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think, do I even need to intro myself at this point?
Yeah, I think it would be. I mean, most people know you, but I think it would be good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Greg. I did some bad things when I was younger. Well, I stopped getting caught after that. Sorry, that just came out wrong.
He was kidding. He was kidding.
Yeah, calm down. I hacked a nuclear weapons facility. Angelina Jolie made me do it. I worked with the feds, 25 years in cyber. Worked my way up to CISO, but always kind of I had a meeting with a CEO of a company, a Globolution Group, a few weeks ago, and he was like, "Do you know what my favorite thing about Greg is? He's a security person that never talks about security. It's all business." And I've gotten quite a few compliments, I guess, about that there's not a lot of thinking at business level. As a head of CISO, whatever, I'm familiar with you update your job profile on LinkedIn, and within 12 hours, you're inundated by 100 different vendors trying to flog you something. It's like, dude, I started today. I won't have a clue what I need for at least 3 weeks. So that's quite typical. I'm pretty critical of the security industry, obviously. Well, obviously, for those that know me. There's so many Lambo tags distracting Lambo comments.
We'll come back and address the Lambo comments in the chat.
Can I make these people smaller? Sorry, guys. I'd completely lost my train of thought there. But
you were just saying how you used to be really bad and terrible, but now you're not.
Yeah. No, but let's just fast forward to the reality of a head of InfoSec or CISO nowadays. They are definitely different things, but you are just kind of flooded with stuff from vendors. There's no real understanding of where it goes. But me personally, I've kind of let's take a step back. Let's take a few minutes to talk about what's wrong with Lambo number 5.
We're not going to get anything talked about.
We've created a monster. So let's take 5 minutes to look at the security industry, why I think it's broken. And by industry, I mean the whole area. I mean, you look at security spending year on year, it's going up and up and up and up, and number of breaches is going up and up and up and up. So clearly this is not sustainable. The analogy I gave at a talk a couple of weeks ago is if I was going to fix the NHS, and I told everyone I'm going to increase your taxes by 10%, and I'm going to double the NHS's funding, and then 3 years later, the waiting times are double what they were before.
I think that's actually what's happened, isn't it?
Yeah. I was going to say you'd be outraged, but I guess never mind. You've just completely ruined my analogy.
Sorry.
It's just not sustainable. You can't just keep throwing money at something and actually have it come out worse every single time. But that seems to be perfectly acceptable in cyber, and I think there's very little accountability. And we have, if it does go wrong, you have the excuse of, it's not if, it's a matter of when, so I'm never actually responsible. And this is obviously a very car-themed program now, especially with me on it. And I've been using this third-floor car analogy for a long time, car factory analogy. But I kind of changed it a few weeks ago for a different talk. And I was talking imagine you're in a car factory and you got this assembly line. You got 100 stations doing stuff. And at the very end of the line, you have someone who does QA, quality assurance. His or her job is just to make sure that everything's okay and to maybe buff out a scratch that someone did with their belt buckle. But imagine you get to that stage and the cars are a total mess. The steering wheel's on crooked. There's no oil in it. The wheels are on wrong. The panel gaps are terrible. You forgot to fit half the instruments. Well, what would you do? Well, you work out what's wrong with that product.
Sounds like you've just bought an electric car.
Yeah. Tesla. There you go. Is that your experience? Well,
No, I wouldn't buy one.
Yeah, me neither. But anyway, you figure out what went wrong, at what point in the build process was that, what station was that, and you go there and you see, well, why is this happening? What's the problem? What is causing this? So it stops happening over and over and over. That's how most people would do it. In cyber, what we do is no, you stay there. We'll hire you 10,000 buddies and train you up as mechanics, as testers, as engine assemblers, as trim installers, and then you can just fix all the problems all the time without ever fixing any of the issues on the assembly line. And that's all security is. It's firefighting. Most of what we call security is firefighting, and this is why we're never actually making an improvement. Someone just posted something on LinkedIn an hour ago about why do most CIOs or even CISOs refuse to do patching? Like,
Oh, was it the one about automatic patching as well?
yeah,
Yeah.
the guy with the really good professional photos. I forget his name now, but
You
no
remembered
one's
his
doing
picture
it.
though.
Yeah, exactly. Big teeth. But no one's doing it, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's IT's job." It's like, well, no, because fixing that would prevent all these other things from happening, and no one's doing it that way, and that really irks me. And we just can't make
Why?
sustainable progress.
Okay. Why is that? What's led us to this point?
I think we have a lot of problems in, well, how security has kind of taken shape in terms of what's kind of normal, what's status quo, what teams are expected to do, what the different roles are and job descriptions. Because you look at the job descriptions, I really don't like using filters. Like, my head's kind of half disappearing.
We had one here.
Yeah, I'm going to take it off.
You're not actually there. Now I'm disappointed.
I'm sorry, guys. It's just going to be my living room. Deselect. There you go.
Alana's made a good point. Isn't security everyone's responsibility?
It is, but in some ways, we are actually undoing that. Why, if it's everyone's responsibility, why do you have a whole separate security team constantly fixing and responding to other people's mistakes? And yet you could say, oh, it's because they make the mistakes, but most security teams don't engage the business to stop those mistakes. They don't go and improve the business process so these mistakes stop happening. And I see, how many CISOs have I seen? It's like, you're missing 30,000 critical patches. Like, yeah, IT is terrible at it. It's like, oh, why don't you go fix that? You won't take that initiative, but you'll be pissed off at the board that they're not giving you the extra $3 million a year you need to respond to all these incidents.
Yeah.
So the whole, we don't have these roles that go and improve the business. Most security roles, it's pen testing and it's SOC analysts. Like, that's 80% of the workforce, and there's no leadership. There's no security strategy. Most organizations don't have strategy. Most organizations don't have a program. Like,
do you think there's a there's a gap in the governance, risk, and compliance part as well then?
I think most of the cookie cutter compliance that I see isn't fit for purpose. It's not business aligned. It's very IT focused. It's not business focused. And I'm really annoyed because when I get offered contract opportunities, it's either to implement a tool or a solution, or more often than not, it's to create some processes so that we can pass this audit, but absolutely no
interest in doing it properly.
Yeah, exactly. It's the last engagement I had lasted 3 days because they wanted me to create a bunch of processes. I'm like, guys, you've already got processes, but you've not used them in a year and a half.
Yeah, then why do you make some more that they couldn't use for another year and a half?
Audit. So now we need, so there's no, and their IT and security people were fine with that. For them, that was doing security, was just passing the audits without actually doing anything. So the whole industry is really dysfunctional. And I found, when I've had the opportunity to build a security program that's really integrated with the business and address security issues as quality defects and go in and work with the business and fix the business processes to get rid of those things, it's been tremendously successful and also very cost effective. But most CISO roles, first of all, I don't even think most CISO roles are actual CISO roles. If you read the job description, I'm going to say less than 10% of CISO roles out there are actually a CISO.
And what do you think they actually are?
I think it's about like leadership and defining programs and the business strategy around how do I create security, not how do I implement a bunch of security processes and technologies that I've taken off this blog or whatever, or this standard. Like, no, I need to understand my business.
Does this relate to this point JJ's made then?
Yeah, but I think even when there is governance, it's often not connected to the actual business, and I think that's a big problem. But most CISOs technical, and the ones that aren't, they're actually very compliant, but third-party compliance. They don't actually know a whole lot about the business that they're supposed to be focusing on. There's been a lot of, I think, damage done to this space. We're talking about Darktrace with someone earlier. About one of the main things I dislike about Darktrace, other than the fact that it just doesn't work, is their marketing message that it's that silver bullet, that it will do everything for you, that the AI fixes it all. And that sends a really bad message.
Yeah.
That tells security practitioners, and that tells the senior management teams, this is all you need. You don't need anything else. You don't need to put in the effort to understand, to integrate, to really get the visibility you need and realize how things work together and what impacts what.
I think it's not just Darktrace though, is it? I know we're
No,
singling them out because they're a great example,
it's
but
a lot.
it's
But
cool.
I think Darktrace has done that marketing to the max and really done a disservice, which makes the fact that they've actually gotten an MBE for services to cybersecurity twice as annoying.
Yeah.
And it's just completely broken. And I've been wanting to fix this for a long time. I'm actually really, really bored with IT and tech. I just don't give a shit. But it's so broken, and we're so kind of obsessed with doing everything the most cool techie way possible. We really want to see stop saying Darktrace. we really seem to be wanting to like be incredibly dependent on something, which we've proven time and time again that we can't manage or secure. And it's quite worrying. And that's kind of my motivator now. So I want to bring some change to this. But if you want to work as a CISO and actually implement these principles in one organization, it's pretty much impossible because no one will let you. It's not what they expect from you. HR, big dog. HR won't, that's not the job spec they've been given. I love how the level of performance and accountability tends to be really, really low. So the number of jobs that I've gotten where they're like, oh, we want someone who can manage a team of 25 and a budget of 10 million. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I could do more than what you're doing now for a budget of 2 million and a team of 5. Say, oh, well, then you're not senior enough. I'm not wasteful enough is what you're saying. But unfortunately, this is to have any realistic, like decent level of security, people are spending, 8-9 figure budgets in some places. And it's just totally broken. I don't know what else to tell you. It's the
okay.
wrong.
Well, look, if I've only been in the industry a couple of years, but I can see the damage that the vendors have done. Some of the vendors have done in the marketplace. How can they go about changing that narrative, and what can they do? Because it's going to be vendor led, right? They're the ones with the budgets and with the money.
Yeah, and that's kind of what, because I'm chasing their money too. Let's be honest. This podcast is shameless self promotion.
Yeah. I'll drop the link in later.
Yeah, but it's so I kind of reached this point where it's like I'm unable to affect this change because for all kinds of reasons, even like just IT people, security people, like this is something I came to grasp with maybe like 5 years ago. That we're not terribly good with like emotional maturity. We don't like to be challenged. We don't like, it's uncomfortable. And there's a lot of resentment. There's a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Finger pointing.
A lot of finger pointing as well.
Anti-disestablishmentarianism.
That's a big fucking word.
It's a big word. No idea what it means, but yeah.
Now there's a lot of, I don't want to call it fear, but there's a lot of resistance, a lot of reluctance. People are threatened. That's really what I'm looking for. Like I see this all the time. Like I'm going to a place. Oh, great, you have all these insights, and as soon as you start pointing out things that could have been done better or aren't, did you realize is that they realize, oh, I've not been catching all of this, and it's threatening, and they just get rid of you. Like yeah. I've had that many, many times. Like I've go into an organization, highlight issues, and just get fired for it. So it's very, very difficult, and it became incredibly frustrating because I go in, I want to help the business, but I get sacked for highlighting issues, which would actually save money if we address them. I'm not saying, guys, we need to spend 5 million. Usually it's, guys, we need to do it this way because it'll be better. Plus we'll free up this 300K. But that will get you fired. And it's basically become impossible to work in. And I've been talking now for a few years, doing a lot of public speaking about how we really need to address the business process, how we need to address the root causes. Stop all this firefighting. You don't need a SOC with 300 people if you address the business issues that are causing 98% of the issues that your SOC is addressing. And I think a lot of people kind of, and I think I was annoyed also by the vendor push, all the negative things we've said about vendors so far. But there's a tipping point there where you actually, it's not necessarily the vendors. I think the vendors actually have a lot of value in their tools. They just don't realize what it is. They're not selling it that way. They're not necessarily designing it that way either, but the value is there in that. I'll give you an example. Like if I go into a company and they ask me, well, how are we doing? How's our maturity? And I go like, well, don't know. Can I see your vulnerability management tool? And I don't really care whether you've got 100 or 35,000 critical vulnerabilities. I care about what's causing them. And if they don't have that, then I don't have a lot of insights. But I can look at a vulnerability management tool and I can say, well, your host names are all screwy. And you've got vulnerabilities of this age, and I'm seeing things in this department, and I'm seeing like weird configurations, and I'm seeing this sort of issues. I'm not really concerned about the count, but it tells me a lot about the behaviors that are going to be leading the root causes to these things. So in that sense, that's incredibly useful. And I think vendors, you could take two vendors selling a same type of solution. Let's stick with vulnerability management. And
not Darktrace?
No. Oh. Like whatever, just whether it be Nessus or Rapid7 or whatever, like similar functionality. But if one of them says, oh, it's going to find your vulnerabilities and you can fix your vulnerabilities, which are just, you have business processes creating new vulnerabilities all the time because your IT quality just isn't there. And another one says, we're going to help you identify the business processes and the quality issues that are generating your issues, therefore reducing them. That's a lot more value. Yeah. And you can have two products equally good, or you could even have one that's maybe slightly less good. But if the vendor is positioning it and making the proposition in that way, that has way more value than even the better product, because the person selling the better product isn't communicating the strategic value to you. And most CISOs don't think that way. They don't understand that. But I think the vendors could be playing this role of amplifying, like explaining the strategic value behind their offerings, and also educating a lot of these CISOs who, a lot of them just aren't like, there's not a lot of business thinking. There's not a lot of holistic thinking. There's not a lot of critical thinking. By positioning these things this way, the vendors could actually really help and educate, and like even other things that vendors could be doing. Like vendors tend to not understand what it is I'm trying to achieve, and so they're just pitching me a solution. It's like, you don't know why I would use this, or whether I even need this, or how
it's back to knowing your customer or knowing your client, isn't it?
Yeah.
until you've done that, it's very difficult. I'll just stop you quickly because there's so many comments coming in.
Try not to get distracted by them.
And a couple of really interesting ones from Steve Armstrong. Actually, it appears that Steve says vendors don't understand customer business; they just understand their sales deck. I've been in sales for 20 years now. So for someone who's been in 20 years of sales, for you to identify that, Steve, I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are on what you can do different. I mean, he's also said that the entire sales methodology of vendors is broken. It needs change within, and he feels it a lot. I mean, that's what we're hoping to start driving by getting your message out here today.
I think, because you don't want to be seen as a salesperson. You want to be seen as someone who's a trusted advisor.
Yeah.
As someone I want to keep going to. And it's a lot of vendors that don't even realize, like they could be selling their products to people that they don't think need their product. A lot of people are very obsessed with like tech categories. So it's like, because they read Gartner and like, I need an EDR, I need this, I needed that, and then did that. So, actually, I need to know what state these systems or processes or assets or whatever should be in. Is it in that state? And is it changing? That's all I need to know. I can mix and match technologies to achieve that in a whole bunch of different ways that people haven't thought of. Like if I know the system needs to be this way, and I can guarantee that it is that way and it isn't changing, that's all I need. I can leverage any technology I want to do that, even really weird ones. I can get rid of I can make a file system read only and get rid of all kinds of agents. I don't need them.
Yeah. So again, it's understanding the business first, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm looking at Jed, who I just connected with. Don't you think
Great
that
guy.
the nature of
Great guy.
sales is solving a problem? I think it is, but I think a lot of CISOs don't actually understand. Well, that's I guess what he's well, exactly. He's basically saying it. Never mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
to teach CISOs how to approach these things, what a security strategy should be like, what a program looks like, how these things fit together. And I think by giving a little bit of that education along with the sale, along with giving like the strategic value around the product, because just giving a strategic narrative around the product, two people can be selling the exact same thing. If you're giving a more strategic narrative, like if you use our product this way, it will create more value. It will solve more problems long term. It's not about faults. It's not about addressing 1,000 incidents a day. It's about turning your 1,000 incidents a day into 50 incidents a day. That's a better value proposition.
I completely agree. Playing devil's advocate, going back to something you said at the start about some of the egos and the attitudes in the industry. As a salesperson, how are you meant to get into the position where you become a trusted advisor, where a CISO or a leader is actually going to take on board what you're telling them? Because I think from the people I speak to who are in sales, especially those who are new to the cybersecurity industry, they find it very difficult to build up that initial relationship. And I mean, for me, there's some real red flags on why that happens. I've seen some of the sales outreach messages that go into inboxes that clearly aren't the right approach. But what can they do different, Greg, to try and build that relationship?
I think, try to understand more what people are doing, and take the time to understand. There's definitely a bit of relationship building there. I think the other thing is if you make it a more business oriented, strategic conversation, you broaden your audience.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's something you can take to a finance director. It's something you can take to a CFO. It's something you can take to a COO, because quite often, a lot of the management teams don't really like their security people, to be honest.
Yeah.
And you, as a salesperson, like, I'm sorry, but you can actually one up. You could take advantage of the hatred of the security, CISO probably. And to be fair, like if you're able to do that, I don't feel bad for them, because that means they weren't doing their jobs and they weren't communicating. Like if I'm able to go to an FD and point things that aren't working in their security organization and make him understand it in a way that the security organization who claim to be doing a great job aren't doing and aren't able to communicate, then that's fair game. I mean, we have to drain the swamp as well. Sorry if that's a Trumpism.
It's a bit, but it's all right.
Yeah,
We'll let it go.
A lot of really poor practice. There's a lot of people who are maybe like technically competent, but they're not strategists. They're not, they don't know how to build programs. They don't understand business. I think the number of CISOs that I could talk to who you ask them, what's your company's sales process? And they have no clue. I'm like,
well, that's something that they should be learning in the first week of the job, in my opinion, because you've got to understand. Again, I'm not a leader, but I've been in sales for 30 years, and understanding what you're selling and what you're protecting is obviously paramount.
What are you selling? Your customer, your communications with customers, negotiations. You got contracts. You probably have financials. You probably have you'll have some PII swapping hands in there. You'll probably have some contractual requirements that your company will have to deliver, which will impact all kinds of things. There'll be IT requirements. There'll be data processing requirements. There'll be security requirements. Like these are all things that you need to know, and you need to continuously integrate into your security service delivery. And that IT will continuously need to integrate into its delivery, and that you need to make sure they do properly from a security perspective. Most CISOs have no clue. Like how much critical business information, but also just operational stuff in there that if it stops working, the business is losing money, is in there. Well, that's not IT. We don't deal with it. So there's a lot of talking points, like as a salesperson, where you can just go to. I had a conversation with I've forgotten his name now.
To begin with a J.
No, it was with William Taft. He knows you actually, doesn't he?
I know William, great guy. Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about this morning. It was just like, don't have a clue. And that's what he does now. He just goes to FDs and CFOs.
Yeah.
Because they like we have a value proposition and they get it. It's not this like cloak and dagger risk hoodie people. It's like this is actual.
I think again on talking about William isn't a techie.
Yeah.
William comes from a business development and relationship background, and I think I saw a particularly snipey post on LinkedIn just before we went live from a CISO. I don't know if you saw it. It said doctors don't need to understand medicine, blah, 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 blah. CISOs don't need to understand cybersecurity, something like that. And it was moaning about all he hears about is how we need non-technical people as leaders, but the importance of knowing the nuts and bolts. And just the whole tone of the post itself is a really good snapshot of lots of the issues we've got in the industry, because no one's saying you don't need to know cybersecurity to be a CISO.
Yeah.
No one's saying that technical knowledge is useless, but the ability to communicate with the board and actually engage with people is important.
Yeah, that's because we have so few people like actually operating at a senior, like C-level, what I would call.
Yeah.
You need to work out everything that happens in the business, how you're going to structure things. Basically, it's not about layering on a bunch of security stuff in an IT silo. It's how to secure the actual business. Like every business process, whether it's HR, marketing, sales, IT, just how do you do that securely?
Yeah,
and we
Daniel,
intuitively do that in everything we do. Like I don't kill myself and every time I go make a cup of coffee, even though I could. When I think through, like, well, the rowing machine's there, I'm going to go around it. Little things like that, but that thinking needs to be integrated into all these business processes, and we don't tend to do that. So there's a whole different audience. There's all kinds of different topics that vendors can approach.
Let me. Do you mind if I bring up a couple of questions? Danielle, good to see you. He said, I'll move you to the top so your head doesn't get cut off. There we go. And I'll do this. We forget that security is just one of the things that the board cares about out of maybe 500 things. And we expect the business leaders to just make security the priority without us ever trying to understand the business. And I think that's a really good point, Daniel. Let me get these questions up. Where are they? So we've got Carlos has got a good one here. Good to see you, Carlos. Excited to be coming over to Tampa Bay to bring the InfoSec Live CISO experience to your town. And thank you very much for your support and 360 Advance for making us do that. How can thought leadership at the vendor level help?
Well, I think there's a real level of really lacking the thought leadership at the kind of head of CISO level, or most CISOs don't have business understanding of the very business in general, or of the very businesses that they're supposed to protect. They don't really know how to do their job, which is a weird statement, I know, but I've spoken to so many like security leaders, and I mention things, and they're like, "Oh, but that's IT's job, or that's this job." Is that? I'm like, no, security, because I'm proposing, well, if you do this, that would impact this, and that would impact that, and that would improve security. And they're like, oh yeah, but that's that thing over there, that's their job. It's like, no, it's security, so it's your job. Security is the thing that you're supposed to achieve. It's not just the name of your department. And it's like, that seems to be the mentality, and it's really crap. They have no idea the ins and outs of the business, how departments interact. How explain the relationship between sales and marketing, for example. Most have no idea.
No.
So these are important things to know.
I don't think marketing have much idea about that either.
Yeah, marketing and sales usually hate each other. You think they have each other's back, but we gave them 500 leads last month. They're all shit.
Very, very true. Next one. Some of the questions have already been answered, so I'm not going to cover off a few. But Steve Armstrong has asked a good one here. Is it not more about basic health and hygiene of IT environments versus sticking plasters on the bleeding parts?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like what we were talking about months ago. It's like the best thing you can do for security is, I think, improve IT quality, or improve the quality of all your business processes. Because you might have like a completely non-IT business process that leaks really sensitive data like a sieve, So don't think of it just in terms of IT, but it's definitely about improving the quality of business systems, platforms, processes. That's the best way to do it. That said, again, if I can look at IT tooling and I can see issues, I can use security tooling to spot issues that give me an indication that something is wrong there, and then you can start applying. Like Toyota has a methodology that if you see an issue, you ask why, and then you ask why at least 5 more times.
Yeah.
You don't just find out why that issue was caused, but you find out, well, why is that thing that way then? And then why have we done that? And then why have we done that? And why have we not done that? Only once you've gone up 5 levels do they feel like, okay, we've probably addressed the issue now? Because otherwise it's endless band-aids.
Yeah.
You're constantly, if you have a business process that is causing issues and you're just band-aiding the issues without ever addressing the business process, which will probably not be in the IT security department, then it's never going to stop.
No, I completely agree. Good one here from Carlos. Be nice to have a collaborative workshop with buyers and sellers on this topic. Both sides need education. I think the leadership is out there, but we need to get everyone together. Maybe we should invite some guests on for future shows, Greg. What do you think?
That could be a good idea, actually. That's my general idea. So I think it's funny because if I go to a company and say, hey, I can save you, there goes my pen. I can save you $500,000 a year and greatly improve your security, I usually get told to fuck off. If I go to a vendor,
that's my monetization gone for ads on this one.
Sorry.
All right. Don't fucking care anymore.
Oh, there you go. You just did it yourself. You should have mentioned that earlier, Simon.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
If
I get like 3p on each one. I wouldn't worry. It's all right.
Okay. But if I go to a vendor, it's like, I think I can help you better understand your customers and improve your value proposition and this, because I've actually spoken at conferences where I slag off security, the whole approach of how we're doing it right after they've done their talks, their sponsors, and they just did all their talks about, we do this and this and all these incidents, and I just go on stage like, well, if you just did that, you wouldn't have any of those things that those guys solve. But to get to that point, and this is the bit that I added on because as I became a bit more, my own thinking expanded as well. But to get to that point where you no longer have the issues that you need their tool so desperately for, you kind of need their tool to first spot it, and fix it. And I actually had some vendors come up to me afterwards like, it's not often that you hear new things. That was really interesting. That's a whole new angle we could be using, and that's actually what started the whole process. This is a couple years ago, and they're they want to sell. They're always interested in the sales and marketing teams. They're interested in new approaches. They want to try new stuff. They're willing to spend money to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, which means I can actually make a living off of it. Because if I go to a company just trying to help the company, they're not interested. They don't understand. Well, for me to explain security strategy and what it means and how you should build a program and to understand their specific business, it would take weeks. And even then it's probably not worth the effort, and then there'll be all kinds of political reasons not to do it, blah, blah, blah. But I can go to a security vendor I can probably increase your sales. Ooh, here's some money. Tell us how. For them, it's a much easier way for me to make a living, to be honest.
Well, while we're on that, for anyone who is interested, I haven't got a link to your website, but what I have got is a link to your LinkedIn profile. So I'm going to drop that in the chat now. Do you have a site or anything that people can jump on?
It's not quite finised, but it's just gregvandergaast.com.
Okay, cool.
Who would have thought that wouldn't be taken?
I know.
So it's kind of leveraging, and again, I mentioned earlier, you get consulting gigs and they either want you to implement tools or they want you to make up a bunch of bogus policies. Of the two, I hate the policy people way worse, because they are literally just trying to cheat by doing some documentation. The people who are buying tools, and don't get me wrong, almost all the time, they're not really leveraging those tools, or they're not even going to implement them, or they're going to sit on the shelf, whatever. But they have actually gone out, looked, and spent money. Which shows that they actually had some intent on doing something.
Just misaligned, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. They don't know how to fully leverage it. And I think this is part of the, and back to the IT quality stuff, a lot of people are buying tools, but they don't have the foundation of a healthy IT infrastructure or a healthy security team or IT teams to actually leverage all the potential that tool has.
It's getting the basics. I suppose it's getting the basics done first, is it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I could install agents in an environment for whatever platform, but if all my hosts are so easily compromised that any attacker can just cut off the communication, uninstall the host, or even feign data to the agent, it's pointless. So those security technologies then just won't work, and then that reflects poorly on the security vendor.
I completely agree. Let's bring this comment up from Mahmood. This might sound like a bigger topic, but let's not forget that cybersecurity is the only industry where both vendors and customers are on the reactive side of the story. Take Australia's, I can't pronounce that, CIRMP, for example. I'm sure the whole market is shifting towards hold on, what the government has mandated is the end of it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that standard, but
You're
it
not, no,
does seem all, it is all reactive, and it shouldn't be. Security is not reactive.
no.
We've made it like information security. We've made it reactive. I don't leave the house and then have a team of security response people on retainer if I find that it's broken into because I haven't locked the door. No, I just lock the door.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
But that's, the security, like brick walls, sturdy door, brain dead, obvious. Everyone does it without even thinking. So the security person wouldn't do that. I'll build a house out of rice paper, but I'll build 5,000 drones and comb the neighborhood and make sure to monitor absolutely everything. And if someone does break in, it'll set off an alarm. It won't stop them, but it'll set off an alarm. And then it'll call that team, and then they can intervene. And it's like, you've made this really complicated for no reason. It's like, yeah, but look at all this tech, and it's got AI in it.
It might have even been you who used this analogy before, that someone used the alarm analogy with me once, with regards to if you went to a policeman and a fireman and asked them for an alarm, you're going to get two completely different things. It's quite a relevant point.
True. And I think the policeman and the fireman thing is an interesting argument as well, because we like to portray ourselves as, we're saving the world from cybercrime because all the baddies and the hoodies. But quite often we don't actually do what's most effective. We do it when it makes us look good. But, if I offer a solution to if 10 people are really concerned about security, but then I offer a solution that's foolproof, but it means they become unemployed or make significantly less money, they're not very enthusiastic about it. It's like, well, where's the altruism? Are we really here to make things better? Or are we just kind of doing this to make a buck? And I've seen behaviors where things are deliberately not fixed to keep issues going, to justify budget and staff and headcount. See it all the time.
That's shocking. But not abnormal, no?
No, it's not abnormal. And it's a bit, there's a lot of bad crap in the security industry. And it's like, I'm sorry to slag off the security industry, but we have, if we're going to be taken seriously, and if we're, more importantly, because I don't really give a shit about security, but I don't give a shit about the industry or the space. I want to live in a world where we're not worried that one rogue 14-year-old could shut down a hospital and kill a bunch of people.
Yeah. And
it wasn't prevented because job security. That's not okay.
No, it's not.
So we have to drive some accountability at that level. And if that's people don't want that, then maybe don't work in this line of work.
So going back to Mahmoud's comment then, which the acronym was for Critical Infrastructure Risk Management Program.
Yeah.
Do you think, are we to rely on governments to start driving this forward? I mean, I've got my own opinions on local governments at the moment, which I'm probably not going to say on here. Yeah. But I don't think we can we?
I think don't know. I think it's a sad day when we have to have the government tell us how to do stuff. But it's so bad that it can be a positive driver. What's her name? Jen. She's the director of the U.S.
I know who you mean. Yeah, I can't remember her name though.
But she was actually, she did a post or a statement a couple of months ago that security, the way we do it is unsustainable. We need to enforce quality in how we build and develop systems. We can't just keep releasing stuff with thousands of bugs, and half of which are security bugs. Easterly, that's the one. Thank you, Elena. And then expect security people to mitigate it all the time. It's like, no, we have to shift this quality proposition. And I think the correct number of SOC analysts is hypothetically enough to address each issue once. Because if you address the root cause of that issue, it will not repeat itself. But if every day you've got 500 of the same issue, then you need a SOC of 200 people.
I mean, that leads us on to a comment JJ's just made.
Yeah,
I love doing SOC stuff, but no one can do SOC stuff right. I mean, there's SOC as a service has become quite a big thing, and I'd argue with some of them I've seen, you're not getting much of a service out of those SOCs.
It's very easy to have a low quality SOC, because who can tell?
Yeah.
Congratulations, you've not been breached. We've actually been having coffee this whole time. We have no idea.
We've got no idea what's going on.
And I think, the managed services is an interesting one, because a lot of these are I know, for example, like BT, who does like a whole bunch of police services. A lot of these managed SOCs are like quite dedicated to a handful of clients. They'll have a whole SOC just for really big contracts. They'll have a whole SOC just for one client, or they'll have a SOC for like just a handful of 4 or 5 big organizations. But there's no feedback into the business process again. It's like you are dealing every day. Like, I know it's a third-party company, but you are dealing every day, seeing the issues and incidents coming off their network. From that, you can identify, like, these guys have poor asset management. Like, these guys have poor configuration management. These guys are not patching properly. That's information that you could be feeding back to them and helping them improve their business. But that doesn't get done. And I think, like, if you're a SOC operator and you fix price it, and you are helping the business do better because you're improving their business processes, they're going to have fewer issues. They're going to have fewer security issues, but they're going to have fewer issues full stop. It's going to have healthier IT, more uptime, savings, lower license usage, lower cloud usage, all that stuff, these good benefits. And you're reducing the number of incidents that you have to respond to. So I'm still collecting the same amount of money. They're getting more value. I'm getting less workload.
Everyone's a winner.
Everyone's a winner.
Yeah.
So they're getting more than for what they paid for, and you're having to do less work to get paid for it. So that's a huge strategic missed opportunity to me. But no one wants to step out of that silo because we just don't have the people who do that business communication. And that's why I want to help, because it's easier to speak to the vendors than it is to the people. Help the vendor, who then all their salespeople, marketing people, talk to practitioners and businesses, educate them, and hopefully help bridge that gap a bit and create some opportunities for the vendors, and help the practitioners, companies get more value out of the tools that they do buy.
I think it's a smart strategy because, as I mentioned before, it seems that the vendors are the ones with the budgets and the ones getting the messages out there. So it makes sense that they're the ones to effect the change.
Yeah.
But unless you show them and demonstrate to them how they can make more money out of it and own a Lamborghini, had to get Lamborghini in there somewhere. So maybe that is the way forward. So if someone wants to engage you with services to help with that, how do they go about it? Just reach out to you on LinkedIn, or
just reach out to me. Like I've done this type of thing. I've done public speaking for a number of vendors now, and I was interested because I always did when I always did public speaking. It was always how to run programs and what's wrong with the security space and how to build security teams and hiring and all these things. It was never vendor related. If anything, it was always that slagging off, like we need to address the root causes, stop being so dependent on tools. But then, for whatever reason, vendors started hiring me to do talks as well. And the first time it was quite awkward. So I was like, usually slag these guys off. But I started like, okay, well, what I can do is I can give it a more strategic spin on it. And I remember doing one for Pantera, who are really, really nice to deal with, by the way. And it was all about pen testing strategically, how it's not just about finding a vulnerability, it's what that vulnerability tells you about what caused it. And therefore, Pantera is actually really, really good. It's quite impressive for an automated solution. But even if it wasn't, just the fact that you have such a wide, you're able to increase the scope, means you're able to identify more root causes throughout more scopes. And that's the real strategic value. Because I can find one vulnerability, address, ask why 5 times, address that root cause. And by having fixed that, I will have solved that vulnerability and 499 others that I wasn't even aware of. So
I've got to say, Pantera are a great company. I've spoke to the owner a couple of times. In fact, I saw a post today. Anyone who's looking for penetration testing work, they're looking for a couple of testers at the moment. So check them out. Yeah, solid offering though. Dorota, good to see you. She's got a challenge. Try to sneakily say Lamborghini as many times as possible. Lamborghini, 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 Lamborghini.
Hey, Lamborghini.
Brilliant. We've got
what's the name?
I can't do that. We've got about 5 minutes left. Anything? Steve used to be at Pantera by the looks of it, or knows of them. Any last comments for vendors out there? Obviously, I suppose it's worth clarifying as well. We're going to be doing these every couple of weeks, I think, Greg, aren't we? Want to try?
I think we're gonna have some interesting topic, but like just like from now, I'm focusing on this now, but I've done bits and pieces of this together. So everything just from presenting that different approach, like the Pantera example, or just having another thing that I did with Tanium that was quite successful. I think they got a few 6-figure deals off of that actually. Just like a series of hosted dinners, and just like my experience, how I would manage stuff. I mean, they as the client, they would have a few customers there, and they don't. Turns out quite often they don't actually. I don't know. I seem to have a lot of stuff to say that they hadn't thought of.
Yeah.
It was very, very insightful to them. And you explain to them, like, that's how I would use, for example, this product here from this vendor. I would use it in this setting, and it would allow me to do this thing, and that would impact that other thing, and that would free up this thing. And they're like, oh, we'd never thought of it that way. And obviously they're thinking about it with this particular vendor in context. And I think that's really good for rapport. You're really getting into their business problems. Another thing is just and that's another thing, like vendors don't really understand how security programs run and what the priorities are and what affects what. So sometimes there are ways of they have no budget, but you could propose your solution in such a way, with certain insights that would actually allow them to, but that would mean that you could
free up some budget. Yeah.
And you can actually free up 300K in budget, and then you can spend 100K on us and keep 200K. So that's another thing that you can help them with. What was the other thing I forgot?
Well, going off on a bit of a tangent, it sounds like you could be quite useful as a trusted advisor for CISOs as well, because I've had a conversation with a few, I obviously won't name names, over the last 12 months, who are struggling to define what tool sets to use, what things to onboard, how to review their existing tools. Again, back to the mindset, is that the right word, of some of them, it might be a difficult thing to approach.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to, but it's a lot of people don't want to admit that.
It's fine if they admit that to me, because I don't really know what I'm talking about. So I suppose I'm not a threat, am I?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you were just voted as one of the most.
I know, how funny, right?
Shows.
I would just like to clarify, this is my 21st month in the cybersecurity industry. So if you're looking for valuable insight on current threats and trends, don't follow me, but do come and look at the content and the people that I have on the show.
But if you'd like some hilarious stories and anecdotes, do buy him a few drinks.
Got some really good ones. Coffee only now, I'm afraid, which is why I don't have so many hilarious and funny anecdotes anymore.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, even just, kind of like I'm doing a blog series for Biz Design now, and it's all about like how to use, for example, they're a enterprise architecture modeling platform, but how can I use this to approach IT and security? How can I use it to illustrate business processes so people understand each other better and close communication gaps and all these things that were never intended to use that way, but that, like, as a CISO, I was like, I could use this for this. All those aha moments.
Yeah,
there's a lot of little value propositions that the people selling the products don't even realize that they could do that, and the people buying them never think of using them that way. I think it's because I'm just dastardly and always thinking of shady ways of doing things.
It's your misspent youth, isn't it, Greg?
Yes.
Well, look, I think for any vendors out there who are interested, firstly, the offer's there to come on the show with Greg and I, if you're brave enough, to have a chat about your product. And if you're not brave enough, reach out to Greg on LinkedIn. Let me just get his link.
You know what we could do? We could get vendors on the show. They could pitch in, sponsor you a bit, and then we could go through the product and we could highlight a whole bunch of like more strategic, doesn't say this on the tin, but you can use the product to achieve these things on it.
That's a good idea.
That will give them and the audience a whole bunch of new uses for the product, and the vendor can take that knowledge away and
good old Steve. Steve's brave enough. Excellent, Steve.
Steve.
Do you know Steve, by the way?
Yeah, I do actually.
You do. Steve, I'll drop my my LinkedIn in here as well, just in case we're not connected. 1 sec. I'll spell my name. In a long week.
He's a bit like you. He lives in a farm somewhere with.
Does he? Yeah, we've got a lot in common, Steve.
He says he's got Starlink internet. It's amazing, he says.
Yeah, well, mine will be. Steve, what I need is a pole for mine. We've got a thatched roof, so I can't get it up on the roof. So I've got it on a shed, which is about 30 yards away from the house, which means every 45 minutes, the signal gets blocked for 5 minutes. So I'm actually still using a 4G router for these live streams, where I've got an aerial hanging out of my 17-year-old son's bedroom window.
Can I just point out that you said something about a pole, this movement, and I can't get it.
Let me explain the pole. So the pole is to attach to the easterly facing side of the house, which will elevate the Starlink dish up in the sky above the thatched roof. No sexual connotations were involved in that statement at all.
And they can't get it up there?
Can't do that anymore. I'm nearly 50. We don't even have to cover that, do we?
Ouch.
No, well, I think that's us done. We've done an hour. Greg, thank you so much for coming on. We'll come back in a couple of weeks' time. If there's any vendors out there who are interested in coming on, you in particular, Steve, reach out to me. Let's get that organised. And again, if there's any vendors out there who'd like to take advantage of some Greg advice, please do reach out to him on LinkedIn. Quick sales pitch from me. It is a sellout tomorrow, so not trying to sell anything, but we're in Cambridge in the United Kingdom tomorrow for the first of the InfoSec Live CISO Experience on Tour events. We've got, I think, 40 industry leaders coming together for beer, pizza, and a bit of networking, and a small chat on incident response. Thank you to Cyberscale and Cyber East, the local government partnership, for their support and making that possible. And one more thing, 30th of March, we're coming over the pond to Tampa Bay in Florida for another CISO experience, thanks to the support of 360 Advanced. And for anyone who's going to RSA on the 25th, I think it is, of April this year, I'm looking at hosting a dinner in the evening, again, for about 40 to 50 industry leaders, looking for a sponsor for that event. So if you are a vendor and you're interested, please do reach out. Do nice price for you, very nice price. It's more of establishing the proof of concept that these events are going to work. So I'm doing them at a fairly low cost at the moment. So if you want to take advantage of that, please do reach out to me on LinkedIn. Greg, any final words to stop me rambling?
So I think we should get have these discussions with vendors. That'd be cool. And I think we should break down like specific value propositions or types of things that vendors do and make a topic for every show. Like one, for example, is vendors who just like they come up with a technical solution and the website just says a bunch of stuff. I've lost count because I think it's the majority of vendors. I go on the website, I read 5 pages, I still don't know what your product does.
Yeah,
like I've been reading this for 15 minutes. I still don't know what your product does at all, let alone what it actually means for me in my context. So
excellent, Steve. I like you already, Steve. I'll reach out to you separately. I was thinking to say something, but Steve's blown me away with his comment. I'll reach out to Darktrace, see if they want to sponsor one. Actually, no thanks. I'm only joking. Greg, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Everyone's shorting their stock anyway, apparently.
Yeah, well, if I owned any, I'd have sold it a while ago, I think. But look, Greg, thank you very much. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't, please do like and subscribe. Really makes a difference to the channel. And Greg, again, thank you so much for coming on. And I'll see you all really soon.
All right.
See you
Live long
later.
and lampo.
I can't even do it with my hands.